the top 5 fascinating people from Joy in the City for 2022.
Joy in the City is a program highlighting people and organizations having an impact in our city. All too often, we hear about the problems and dysfunction in our culture, but today we are coming with a different approach as we take a look at all the good things going on right here in our community. I'm Bethany Marshall, and you're about to see what God is doing in our city.
For the last several years, Joy in the City has produced a top 5 fascinating people list of everybody we have filmed throughout the year. Our team pulled together a voting system and pulled together this list of who we feel are the top 5 fascinating people from our filming in 2022. Number 5 on our list is a ministry with 2 men at the very forefront that I want to talk about. These 2 guys are fascinating to me. The ministry is called Ben Blessed, and the 2 gentlemen are named Josh Kreider and Josh Rowland. You see, these 2 guys I've got to know a little bit and talk to them about their heart, and even though they do have a ministry, and we have many ministries throughout our community that God has blessed, but these 2 guys have a heart for the homeless, people who are in need. And basically what Ben Blessed does is it meets the basic needs of the homeless community. And these guys go above and beyond what most people would ask in this realm. And I just want to highlight them and take a little glimpse of some of the work they do.
Guys, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So tell everybody what Ben Blessed is.
We're a ministry of Renew Church, and our main focus is catering to the immediate needs of the homeless in the area. It's a pretty big issue around here that people don't seem to realize that we have, but there's a huge need for this out there. A couple years ago I was on drugs, I was homeless on the streets, and it was really rough, but I got by on like random acts of kindness from strangers, and so as I got clean and stuff, joined Renew Church, and we started growing. We wanted to do something to give back, and we started Ben Blessed.
The play on words. What's the Ben?
Ben is a really good friend of mine that passed away a couple years back. He suffered with mental health and addiction, and he ended up killing himself in a hotel room. But he was one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet. He would literally give you the shirt off his back. And so when I wanted to start this, I wanted to include his name in it somehow. But it also stands for Because Everybody Needs Blessed, Ben Blessed, or You've Been Blessed.
I love it.
There's a couple different plays on words there.
Yeah, I love it. So what types of things do you do for the homeless?
We hand out a lot of food, clothing, hygiene supplies. Right now we've been giving out a lot of tents and sleeping bags. We give rides to court dates, doctor's appointments, anything like that. Matt Stuckey actually just donated a brand new van to us, so we've been able to help with a lot of transportation needs right now. The only thing we don't really do is housing, but we connect people with other resources that can.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it always feels sometimes like unbelievable, but people do start out here and something catastrophic happens and they're down here.
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you get them out? How do you get them out of that?
We meet, a lot of love. Love, time, we give them a lot of our time, and we connect people with, we work with a lot of the different agencies around here, St. Vincent, Community Action, Catholic Charities, Family Services, and whatever we can't do, they're able to, and we just slowly but surely help them get out of these ruts and stuff until they get to a better place where they can stand on their own feet.
Mm-hmm. And where does your funding come from?
Well,
we get donations from people that see what we're doing and care about us, and a lot of these agencies give us stuff too. Family Services was really great over the last couple months. They stocked us up with a lot of hygiene and stuff, and we just pray about it. If we have needs, we pray, and we might put a post on Facebook, and then we'll get a lot of responses. And we recently had a little boy donate his birthday to us. It was really amazing. He can tell you more about that.
yeah, so his name is Benson, and he just turned 8, and his birthday was at the Martinsburg skating rink, and I tried to get him, was going to try to get him to come here tonight, but I didn't know who to call. But he's just an amazing little boy. He's 8 years old, and they started out with 5 tents. he gave us. And then his mother, Kara, called me, I don't know, a day or two later and says, hey, I got this whole big party. Come up to Martinsburg, bring anybody from the church you want to. And that minivan that you saw, he filled the minivan.
Wow.
Yeah, so with anything from shampoos, his mother gave us 100 bottles of shampoo. She took bigger bottles and made them smaller, but travel-sized bottles.
Right.
They're just, to see an 8-year-old have that much compassion. He has more compassion in his little fingernail than some adults that I know.
Right.
He's just amazing. Other people, his whole family is just amazing. I mean, they filled a minivan.
Right.
Number 4 on our list is a couple. And this couple just impressed me with their heart and their ministry. The ministry that they oversee is the Blair County Orphan Care Alliance. And the people are Jill and Ron Kanzo. You see, whenever I first got to meet them, I saw a heart for people in the foster and adoption community. And they really come alongside people. They have foster kids themselves, and they also really support others in that through that ministry in our area. So Jill Kanzo is one I really got to spend some time talking to, and I've just been blessed to see what they do, and I just pray that they continue to be blessed in what they do. But here's a little glimpse of some of the work they're doing in our community.
Yeah, we became foster parents in October of last year, and immediately we got a placement, and we have 3 biological children. In January, we got a call for a sibling set, and we originally weren't sure because we already had a decent amount of kids, but we said yes. The call came back around to us, and we said yes, and we just had a lot of kids and a lot of craziness, but we love fostering. And our biggest thing was we were overwhelmed with when you get a placement, there's a lot. Yeah, it's an adjustment for us, for our biological children, for them. And immediately when we got the call, we asked for prayer from our church and my mom's group. And they answered that by immediately coming to our house and coming with diapers and wipes and clothing and groceries. They
did our laundry.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. They provided meals for at least the first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was just amazing for us. And during all that time, as they took care of all of our physical needs, we realized we didn't have to do any of that because we could focus on our own children and the children in our home. And that's when we got to talking of, this needs to be noticed in churches. This needs to be provided. This needs to be talked about. How can we support foster families? Because it was huge. And we probably would have thrown in the towel, pretty quickly because we had a lot of kids and a lot going on and we were in survival mode. And that's when we knew God was calling us to look for a ministry for foster care support.
So tell me a little bit about what does Orphan Care Alliance do for people?
There's several things. It's mostly just we want to bring awareness to foster care. There's 14,000 foster kids in Pennsylvania. Wow. So that's just huge. So we want to bring awareness that bringing up more foster families, but also supporting those foster families. And that's exactly what they do. There's several ways. There's an online portal, gateway, that you can, we partner with the county, and the caseworkers can plug in the needs of a new family or foster child that they would possibly have. And then whoever would sign up as a volunteer on there, they just get an email of that need and they can meet it. So that's an immediate way someone can help a foster family, which is amazing. There's also, we're going to work with churches to get care communities to have a wraparound support for any foster families. So the statistics are huge. I don't know if you want to share them.
Sure. Nationally, after 1 year, the average foster family, half of them will quit being foster parents just because it's so difficult. Yeah. In Center County, which is where it just started, it actually, the ratio flips. It's not, after 2 years, 90% quit if they do not have these care communities. They've been doing it for 14 years, and in those 14 years, they've seen that now after 2 years, 90% will stay when they're properly supported.
Wow.
Yes, so I mean, the ratio completely flips.
Yeah.
And not only does that make more foster families, but then they are better with the children themselves because they are well supported. So they are able to put that time and effort into the children instead of just running around trying to put out fires all the time.
And this is a case of another pair of guys who have taken on a major project in another country. Steve Becker and Bill McCauley have taken on the project in Kenya to not only build an orphanage, but they are working towards getting everybody in that orphanage having a financial support through sponsorships. The last time I read information, they have rescued 101 kids from trafficking and different situations over in Kenya. And I believe they have, let me get this straight, 96 of those kids are sponsored for financial purposes. So these kids are off the street. These kids are in an orphanage home and in a ministry and training that is being done. And it's just a beautiful thing. These guys aren't guys that went to Bible college or have a seminary degree or have a lot of financial backing. They just had a heart for this. They went to people, they went to churches and just tried to raise funds. And they have done that. I know initially it was a $50,000 goal to just break ground in Kenya. Well, they not only have been able to raise enough money to build the orphanage and sponsor these kids, but they continue to see what God's doing over there and continue to work towards it. So let's take a look at their story and what they're doing in Kenya.
We started with 62. One of them had passed away at the age of 13, Diana. But so we had 61. And then we got the kids moved in December 3rd of the same year it was built. And then in January, the following January, we rescued 10 more. And then just about a month ago, we was able to rescue 10 more. So we're up to 81 right now.
Explain what you mean by that, right? When you say rescue, what does that look like?
They're literally homeless, living in the streets. No parents, no family to take care of them. Most of them are starving, don't have clothes. Literally living off orange peels or banana peels and whatever trash they could find, or food they could find in the trash.
Whenever we first got to Kenya, we just got there. Our first stop was the bank to transfer some money. We had 2 boys, probably 4 or 5 years old, knocking on the window of our van trying to sell us packs of gum. And that's what they actually did every day. They found a place to sleep at night, and they sold gum during the day to buy food for themselves.
And so how many kids at this point are in the orphanage?
We have 81 that live in the orphanage, but what we found out when we got there is where it's at. The closest school is about 2 miles away. So a lot of the kids in the community can't get to school, the younger kids, because their parents can't afford to transportation. But at the same time, they just can't get to school. So they started sitting outside the gates of our school, because we have preschool through 8th grade. We built the buildings for that. And their kids are sitting outside the fence, taking notes, trying to get an education, listening through the windows. So our teachers and staff, they invited them in and started getting the kids educated. We have right now, I think 142 children going to our schools.
Wow.
So not only the support we get through sponsorship, not only is it supporting our kids, but the community is being impacted just by the orphanage of where it's at.
So in a minute, I'm going to ask you what people can do at this point still to help with this, but I want to take a look at a video, a few things of their time in Kenya, so you can see firsthand what they experienced.
See you. Take care.
Number 2 on our list is the first individual that we have on our list this year. You see, I've gotten to know a gentleman by the name of Matt Burns. Many people know him as LT over the last couple of years. LT has a heart for people in need, whatever it might be. He has a very specific ministry to those who have been in the addiction or recovery community. And I've seen him work with people and have a heart, God's heart for people in that realm. But let me just tell you, I believe that every single person that LT comes in contact with, he impacts their life. I just look at this man of God, and the Spirit of God is all over him. It just illuminates off of him when he has conversations. When I hear about his testimony, I hear about the ministries that he has, the church that he helps run. It just is amazing to see what God is doing through this guy. LT is definitely one of our top fascinating people. Take a look at a little bit of his story. Now, what is something that you would say for this person, how to get out of that trap?
Do we have like 4 hours here? There is something about fellowship, accountability, and the power of the Holy Spirit. I would say 3 steps are going to give you the greatest chance of surviving. And I'm going to say that flat out, surviving. I look at drugs now as life or death. If you do drugs, you're going to die in that. Whether it's spiritually or physically, you're going to die. There's no life in drug addiction. There's none. Or physically. The stuff nowadays is no joke. It is nothing like it was before. You see people that have been solid addicts for 20, 30 years that are overdosing on the same amounts they've been using for 20 years. Like that, the stuff is just no joke, and you don't know what you're getting. It's very dangerous now. And so spiritual and spiritual death and physical death, one of the two, you're just not going to be the same. And so I would say find God, not your higher power, not what gives you strength. Find God. He is the one that can save you and rescue you. Surround yourself with fellow believers that are going to call you out on your mistakes. Surround yourself with friends and believers that aren't afraid to offend you and to say, you're slipping up, your character is changing, your mindset, your attitude is changing. Let me help you with that. People that you can trust. And third, pray. Pray. Because the reality is that Satan is the ruler of this world. This is his territory right now. And there's a lot of things that draw us back to our old ways, those familiar feelings that we've known for so many years. But praying puts you in the Spirit. It allows you to walk in spirit and truth. It allows you to be strong in areas that you've never been strong before. It allows you to say no when you could never say no before. It could save you where you could never be saved before. It draws you to God, and it allows your heart to be aimed and open to God and coming to Him with a surrendered voice, with concern and with desire, need for His presence and His strength in your life. I've been clean since 2001. And I need God's strength every single day, not to go back to old ways and old habits. Like, I'm not kidding when I say that the enemy really has territory here. Like, he knows not our thoughts, but he knows our character and what we go for. And he's tempting and decisive. And so praying keeps us in the Spirit, and it keeps us walking in that truth.
Before we get to number 1 on the list, I want to tell you that Joy in the City, as you know it, is taking a hiatus, if you will, for a time. We've been filming people and organizations for the last several years, and I've met so many incredible people in our community that are doing incredible things for our community. But we're just going to take a little bit of a break. But I do want to tell you about a new show that we are helping to produce called Let's Talk About It. It's going to begin on television on January 8th, and here's just a little glimpse of what this show is all about.
Let's Talk About It is a brand new show of several women with bold opinions, but always from a biblical point of view.
One of the pictures you took, it was one of the last photos of my mother-in-law. I said, but I will always be grateful for her in this picture and for the photographer that took this impromptu picture of her.
Plan to watch Let's Talk About It on Sundays beginning January 8th at 5:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. on ABC 23.
Finally, the number one person we've selected as the top fascinating person for 2022 is Andre Halsey. You see, I've had the privilege of chatting with Andre a few times this year, and we've spoken extensively about his heart and his vision for race relations and so forth in our community. Andre is the youngest ever NAACP president in Blair County. He has many, many other accolades in his resume, which you have to watch the whole show to see that. But I do want to give you a little glimpse of some of the things about Andre and why he is our most fascinating person of 2022.
From a very young age, I had interactions with it. When I was about 5 years old, we moved from Maryland to Virginia, and despite it being 2003 at the time, the Ku Klux Klan was actively recruiting in the neighborhood that we lived in. And upon finding that my father was an African American, promptly showed up at our front doorstep, and only 9 months in, we had to flee from the state of Virginia, and slowly made our way up to Pennsylvania, got to Bedford County, stayed with my grandparents for some time, and at the same time, the Ku Klux Klan was recruiting there at Bedford County Courthouse. And so my mom just kind of settled down, looked for a place where we could be safe, feel accepted, and made our way over to Altoona, which for her, as a young child growing up in Phillipsburg, that was the big city, at least, locally. So, I had interactions with it a lot. I saw exchange between both sides of my family, sideways glances, inappropriate comments from older members of the family to each other. I've just kind of been surrounded with it my whole life. And then having a father who lived through the civil rights movement, who experienced segregation at its worst in our nation's capital, there was no way you could really avoid it. But rather than necessarily having to flee for the rest of my life, I decided that it's better to take that step forward and confront the issues.
The conversation in recent years especially, we see a lot and hear a lot about the statement, Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Talk to me about the necessity for that phrase.
So, to put all cards on the table, right? Black Lives Matter isn't just the organization. And I know people are tired of hearing that, but I had the wonderful privilege of meeting Trayvon Martin's mother at the National March on Washington, who essentially coined the phrase. It came out of that unfortunate killing. And, it grew into this huge social movement via social media, right? It's the power of media today. And I think the point that has been lost was that it wasn't that Black lives matter more than white lives. It was that Black lives haven't mattered enough. And it's a tough topic to talk about, especially in a country that has so many traumas with so many different racial groups. But what makes, Black Americans unique is never before in world history had people been systematically brought 3 months across an ocean, intentionally mixed and layered on top of each other like a cake by different language groups so that they couldn't communicate, and then over and over and over for generations intentionally separated from their family members, right? There's this massive loss of culture, a complete degradation of everything that gives you a sense of where you're from other than your skin color. And so you go through this, people forget people were in the United States long even before the 1600s. We were actively bringing slaves here. So you have hundreds of years of this before it gets resolved in the Civil War, and then you just move right into another system of oppression. I don't believe America has gotten to the point where we can really say that we're post-racial. Great. We had a brown president, right? He's African and he's American, but he's not African American, right? His family did not experience the same generations of slavery that my family did, per se. So he has kind of a taste of what it's like to be black in America, but not a generational one. And the protests nationwide were spiraled so out of control by so many instigators that I think people were able to let it just get politicized. And it got further and further and further away from a human rights issue and more of a, are you a liberal or a conservative issue?
What is something that the faith community in this area can do to come alongside and partner with what you're wanting to accomplish?
Here in particular, I see good works being done. You know, we have soup kitchens, we have homeless shelters, we have resources here, but the church community is going to have to take that step forward where we don't just think about our congregation, right? If we're truly trying to be like Jesus, you know, loving everyone. I never read a single verse in the Bible that said Jesus hated him or Jesus hated her. You know, he gave chances to those that society dispelled, you know. So as we continue building ordinances across this state and across this country, spurred on by really far right or really far left religious or non-religious extremes, you know, the church has an obligation as well to ground itself back in those values of love and acceptance and inclusion, right? Because inclusion isn't just having black and brown people in your congregation. It's making people feel welcome. And the church has a special place that it can make that happen in any community.
That's all the time we have for today. And let me once again say thank you to our faithful viewers for over the last several years. We've been producing Joy in This City for about 4 to 5 years now, have several hundred episodes that we've done, and we just appreciate those of you that have been watching. And I do want to encourage you once again to check out the new show, Let's Talk About It. Until then, be blessed and know that God is moving in our city.